This is the tutorial for the fish body. So you're going to take this piece right here and this piece right here. So this is the bottom part of the fish. This is the top part of the fish. Okay, so we're going to take that and we're going to take the widest end of this piece. This is a little bit more narrow and this is a little bit wider, and we're going to line it up with the top of our bottom piece. And you guys will likely need to pin it together. So go ahead and pin it. You don't have to do a ton. 3 should be sufficient. I always do it perpendicular to my seam. Okay, so I'm going to put it like this, right sides together. Put it in my machine. Line your presser foot up with the edge right here. Make sure you've got it on your straight stitch. And then you're just going to sew a couple inches. Then you're going to go back to lock that in place. I'm going to reverse again to lock that in place. Okay, go ahead and pull your pins out. So you should have something like this now. You're going to take it over to your ironing board and you're going to press this seam open on the ironing board. I'm just finger pressing right now because I don't have my iron out. Maybe you're going to iron that flat. That opens the seam nice and flat on the front. Okay, you're going to do that on both pieces. So I just did it once on this one, and then I'm going to go ahead and do it again on this one. So I'm going to look at my piece and I'm going to find the widest edge. I'm going to line up the widest edge with this one. Pin it and do the exact same thing. So when I'm done, I'm going to have 2 of these. Okay, that's my fish body. Now, if you were going to put a trim on it, so I'm going to put this trim on mine, then you're going to want to line that up with this seam. I'm putting my trim right on the edge of that seam right there. Okay. And I'm just going to pin this on here. And I'm not going to want to use my white thread on this. I'm going to want to try and find a thread that's the same color as my trim. And it's okay to keep the bobbin thread the same color that you had before. So I have white in my bobbin. I'm just going to keep that because that's the bobbin thread is the thread that shows up on the back of your project, so no one will see that. But the top thread, I need to find one that's this color. So I'm going to see if I can find one that's that color. Hold on. You can just leave the camera right there. Okay, so I found some super old thread. It's pretty close to the color. You can't even see it when I lay it on here, so I know that it's a good color to use. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my thread out. Your guys' will be different. Whichever machine you have. Lost my machine here. Okay. He's going to pause it for a minute so that I can. Okay, so I'm lining my trim up with the edge of my seam. So right here, I'm doing it with the top edge of my trim to the top of there, and I'm just going to go down that. I'm going to make sure that my Needle's in the down position when I start so that my thread doesn't come undone. And I'm just going to sew that down. I'm going to take the pins out, kind of keep it stable with my fingers. So the whole time I'm kind of realigning this trim with that little ditch right here. Okay, I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to go back in the opposite direction and sew this other edge down so that it's not going to get caught on things. Now, if you don't want trim on your fish, you don't have to have trim. This is optional. Okay, I like the trim on there. I think it makes it look a little more visually interesting. I'm cutting off any extra that I have. Okay, so now I have trim on the front of my bag. Okay, I'm only going to put the trim on the front. 1, because it's expensive. 2, because it's time consuming. And 3, because no one's going to see it. Okay, so now that I have that on there, I'm going to figure out where I want my eyes. Now, on my previous bag that I made as a sample for class, I put my eyes like way too far up so that when we cinched the bag, the eyes were kind of in a weird place. And these eyes are really, really big. So you can take your eyes and figure out how big you want them. Pause it for me. Okay, I'm actually going to cut my eyes down slightly because I feel like I don't want them getting bunched up like my last one did, because that was my rough draft. So I went ahead and just trimmed down the eyes, trying to make it as round as I can. It's not perfect, but it's good enough, especially for first project, right? So just do the best you can to get them round, and then you can put your eyeballs wherever you want. If you want them to be like looking up or looking in different directions, you can also cut these down a little bit. I'm going to cut mine down a little bit. Go ahead and sneeze, Neil, if you need to. My son is our cameraman today. Okay. So I cut down the black parts of my eyes too, just because I wanted them a little smaller. Okay, so once I decide the placement of my eyes, so if I want them like, you know, Cookie Monster eyes or whatever, I can do that. But I'm just going to put them in the middle, I guess. And I'm going to, let's see, what do I want to do? I'm going to switch my thread again. So I got some black thread and I'm going to use that. So we're going to pause again while I switch my pink out for black. Okay, so now we're going to take our eye and put it wherever we want it, and we're going to be sewing down the black part to the white part.
Pupil.
The pupil to the sclera. And so I'm going to change my machine to zigzag. So zigzag is C on mine, so I'm just going to switch it to C. And I'm going to keep it on 1. That's the distance between each stitch. And I'm going to do what's called a satin stitch. And I'm just going to zigzag around the edge of my eyeball. Okay. Do the best I can. You really only want it to overlap the black just barely around that edge, okay? You don't want it to go like really far into your white. So you want to line up your needle with the outside edge of the black. So you're going to put your needle like here so that it goes in, out, okay? So I don't know, Neil, if you can see my needle. You might have to come on this side. My needle just on the outside of that circle, just barely. It's like lined up with that outer edge, and I'm kind of readjusting it every so often. Okay, I don't want it to go way outside into the white. I want it to stay on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna overlap where I started a little bit, and then I'm gonna back stitch. Okay, so now I've got, do you remember how we did that zigzag satin stitch on our samples? You may want to just get a sample piece and practice before you do this. So I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. So it's zigzagged around the edge there. It's not going to come off. Felt doesn't fray, so you shouldn't have any issues with fraying. So there's my first eye. Okay, I'm going to do that for both of them, but we're only going to record one. So we'll pause it here. I'll finish my second one, and then we'll come back and put them on the fish body. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm cutting off all the extra little threads that are hanging off because I don't want them to be sticking out. Okay, so go ahead and get all your little extra threads. Clean it up. So now I have two fish eyes here. Okay, I'm gonna stick mine maybe right here. Maybe I want to get them even just right at the edge right there. So I'm going to decide where I want to put them. And I think I'm going to put them right there. So I'm going to take a pin and just stick it in right in the center of where I want my eyes to be. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to use white this time. So I'm going to have to change my thread a third time. So pause. Okay, we are back. And now we are going to sew these eyes onto the body of the fish. And we're going to do the same thing. So we want the outer needle, the needle to come out just barely past this edge, but we want it to come in here, okay? So I'm going to take my needle out, my pin out so that it's not in the way, and I'm just going to slightly push it, letting the feed dogs do most of the work, but I'm going to slightly rotate it as it goes so that it goes in a circle, okay? So I'm doing this kind of motion with my fingers, okay? But I don't want to force it because I really want these zigzag stitches to be kind of close together. You see, they're kind of close together there. Okay. And it's okay that mine's going a little bit over on my trim. I kind of wanted it that way. Okay. All right. I back stitched. Okay. So now I have an eye. I'm going to go ahead and trim off these extra threads on both the front and the back. Okay. So now I have one eye on my fish. Now I'm going to do the same thing on this one. And Neil, go ahead and just keep recording. Okay. So I'm going to put my needle in the down position. See how it's pulling that thread? If it's not in the down position, it's going to come undone. Now, if this is too hard for you, I can show you guys a hand stitch called a blanket stitch, which will also finish the edges and sew it on, but it takes a little more time because you're doing it by hand. So if this is feeling super frustrating for you and you're not getting it right and you just want to start throwing your scissors because you're super frustrated, I can show you a blanket hand stitch to put these on. But let's try this first because it'll be faster. Okay. And I did that back stitch at the end to lock it in place. I cut that, trim that thread, and I'm going to trim both pieces of thread on the back. Okay. So now I have my eyes, my trim, my thing. I'm going to give this a nice good press so it's nice and flat. I should have pressed this before I put the eyes on. Okay, so you're going to want to press it after each thing. So you pressed it after you sewed this piece to this piece. Flip it over, open the seam, press it flat, okay? Make sure all these wrinkles are out. Then you're going to sew your trim on if you decide to do trim, both at the top edge and the bottom edge so it doesn't lift. Then you're going to sew your pupil to your scalera on both of those with a satin stitch, and then sew the whole eyeball to your fish with a zigzag stitch again. I do have some eyelash yarn, so if you want to give your fish eyelashes, we can sew that on by hand. I don't know. We'll just, it's an option. Okay, so now that you have that done, and then you're going to have this one that's just sewn plain. Let me sew that really quick so I can show you all the pieces and how what they're gonna look like. Now that I've got white back on here, making sure that I go back to that straight stitch, I am going to get this. Oh, let's see. See, look at that. I didn't have it in the down position, so it came off the needle. So you really want to make sure that's there when you start. Okay. Down position, right? So that, okay. Here we go. And then back stitch to lock it in. Making sure your edges are lined up. Okay, so, look at that. I ran out of bobbin thread, so I won't be able to show you that, but that's what you do for that second one. Then you would press it open and you would have this piece and this piece like that. So by the end of Wednesday, this is where you should be on your project, along with then you should also have your quilted lining if you have a lunchbox, or just your lining sewn together like that, okay? And you should also have your fins. So you should have a tail fin and 2 side fins, and if you're doing a shark, you should have a tail fin, 2 side fins, and a dorsal fin. So that should be, by Wednesday, you should have all of those done. All of this done up to that point. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye.